The seas were unforgiving that night. Thick black clouds hung over the horizon, and the wind howled through the rigging of the Thousand Sunny like the screams of the damned. Luffy stood at the bow, squinting into the approaching storm, a deep unease settling over him. It wasn't just the storm that unnerved him. It was what lay beyond it. Thriller Bark was ahead, and with it, the legendary treasure of Captain John. Nami had warned them about this treasure. Every pirate who sought it vanished without a trace, their ships found adrift, but the crews, gone. Some said it was cursed, haunted by the restless spirit of Captain John himself. But Luffy didn't care about curses. He cared about treasure and adventure. Zoro grunted as he tightened the ropes, glaring at the ominous sky. "This place feels off," he muttered. Sanji lit a cigarette, blowing out a stream of smoke as he looked over the ghostly waters. "Feels cursed to me." Robin, her face impassive, flipped through her books, recounting the legends. Captain John was infamous for hoarding treasure, but his greed consumed him. His own crew turned on him, mutinying and leaving him to die in the bowels of his ship. They say his spirit haunts his treasure, bound to the loot he could never let go. As the Thousand Sunny drifted closer to the island, the fog thickened, wrapping around the ship like skeletal fingers. The shadows on the island shifted unnaturally, and the oppressive weight of the air grew heavier. But Luffy, undeterred, grinned. "We're gonna find it. Let's go." The crew made landfall in eerie silence, their footsteps muffled by the damp, rotting soil beneath their boots. Thriller Bark had always been a creepy place, but this was different. The island itself felt alive, as though it was watching them, waiting for something. Brook, being a living skeleton himself, shivered. "Yo-ho-ho, I've got a bad feeling about this, and I don't even have flesh to feel with." They pressed on, deeper into the island, following a map Nami had found, one said to lead to Captain John's treasure. The path led them through the twisted remains of the old pirate ship, now swallowed by the overgrown forest. Vines choked the broken hull, and skeletal remains lay scattered across the ground, their bones picked clean but not by animals. The deeper they ventured, the colder it became, as if the warmth was being drained from the air itself. At the heart of the shipwreck, they found it, a massive iron door, its surface etched with grotesque carvings of writhing figures and screaming faces. The keyhole was shaped like a skull, and as they approached, the door creaked open with a slow, agonizing groan. Inside was a cavernous room, piled high with gold and jewels that sparkled dimly in the flickering light of their torches. But something felt wrong. The treasure was untouched, undisturbed, as if it had been waiting for centuries for someone to claim it. Luffy, wide-eyed and grinning, bounded toward the treasure. "We found it! Captain John's treasure!" But Robin's eyes narrowed and her voice was cold. "Something's not right. We shouldn't touch it." Before she could stop him, Luffy grabbed a handful of gold, laughing as he tossed the coins into the air. The room seemed to darken instantly, the shadows growing deeper, more solid. The air grew thick and heavy, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, from the depths of the treasure pile, a low, rasping voice echoed through the room. "You've made a grave mistake." The crew froze. The voice was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was ancient, broken, and dripping with malice. Slowly, the treasure began to shift, and from beneath the piles of gold, something moved. A skeletal figure emerged, its bones blackened and cracked, its eye sockets glowing with a sickly green light. Draped in the tattered remains of a captain's coat, it stood tall, towering over the crew. Its skeletal fingers were wrapped in thick, rusty chains, dragging behind it as it moved. It was Captain John. The room grew colder, the air thick with the stench of decay. The captain's voice rumbled like distant thunder, filling their ears with dread. "You seek my treasure, but it is not for the living." Luffy stepped forward, undaunted. I don't care who you are. This treasure's ours now. Captain John's hollow laugh echoed through the chamber, sending chills down their spines. Foolish boy, my treasure is cursed. All who seek it are doomed to suffer for eternity. You've taken what is mine, and now you will join me in death. Suddenly, the treasure beneath them shifted again, but this time it wasn't just gold. The ground split open, revealing hundreds of skeletal hands, clawing their way up from the earth, their fingers grasping at the crew's legs, pulling them down. Zoro slashed at the hands, but for every one he cut down, more rose in its place. Sanji kicked, but the hands only tightened their grip, dragging him toward the abyss. Even Luffy's punches seemed useless as the dead pirates continued their assault. From the shadows, more figures emerged. Captain John's crew, their rotting skeletal bodies swarming toward the straw hats. Their eyes glowed with the same unnatural light, their mouths twisted into horrific grins. Luffy struggled against the bony hands, pulling him down. I won't let you win. Captain John, towering over him, laughed once more, his voice like the tolling of a funeral bell. You don't understand, boy. You are already dead. The room darkened completely, and the last thing Luffy saw was Captain John's grinning skull as the world fell away. Weeks later, a passing ship found the Thousand Sunny drifting in the waters near Thriller Bark. The ship was eerily silent, its crew nowhere to be found. The treasure of Captain John was never spoken of again. Beware the curse of Captain John, for those who seek his treasure may find something far worse than riches, an eternity bound to the dead, forever lost in the abyss of his haunted treasure.